Hi, everybody. I'm Reverend Therese Lee, and this is Unity Spiritual Center, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Thanks for joining us. Whatever day, whatever time it is, we are grateful that we are gathered together in one consciousness. So we've been talking about the allness of the eachness in us as God expressing. Eric Butterworth is a Unity minister, and the book is called Practical Metaphysics. Are you willing to step into your divinity and know the truth of who you are and own it? That's the question. So let's start as we do in prayer. So we close our outer eyes and we take a moment and move from the head to the heart space, and then we breathe. We say, living, loving presence, thank you for this day, whatever day it is. Thank you for this time, whatever time it is. Grateful for the opening of our minds and our hearts and our ears to be present to the consciousness that we are sharing, to be grateful for unity, for the teachings of understanding the divinity within us and the wholeness that each of us is. We pray this in the name and after the nature and under the authority of the living, loving presence that is you and that is me, and so we are. Amen. As you join us, please put your name in the box, where you're from, if you have a prayer intention, if you have a prayer request, and we will get back to you. So I'm Reverend Therese, and we've been talking about practical metaphysics. And we talked last week about understanding that the metaphysics is beyond what we see with our physical eyes, right? And so Eric Butterworth, who had the big church in New York City, wrote this great book called Practical Metaphysics. And so we've been talking about understanding that we embrace the truth of us as the very God nature in, through, and as each of us. Metaphysics, like any good life path, is to be practiced. So we get to be aware of the whole of God being present everywhere, always, and in all ways. The whole of life. The allness of God present where you are, where I am, everywhere, always and in all ways. Wholeness is the blueprint of each of us, the divine blueprint. You and I, whole, complete. We're going to talk today about knowing thyself. Know thyself. Embrace the divinity that each of us is. Maybe you've been asked, or maybe you even ask yourself, who do you think you are? Well, there's one real answer, y'all. The answer is I am. 3 little words. I am. And we know this because God is. God is, I am. Another way of expressing it is I am the Christ consciousness, expressing out into the world in, through, and as me. You and I are perfect in potential, right? We talk about this potentiality. And you and I are not perfected. We get to grow each and every day. That's what the scripture of Matthew, verse 16, or chapter 16, verse 15 tells us. What I like about being a Unity student is we talk each day about being prayer-filled, full up of prayer, which allows us then to sit with embracing our divinity, to sit with knowing ourselves. as we sit, whatever that looks like for you, with the God of our understanding, it allows then for ease and grace to make manifest, to help us realize, oh, I do exist. I'm here. I think, I feel, I perceive, I am. This is a great starting point. If nothing else, you wake up in the morning and you say to yourself in the mirror, I am. So we get to unpack this sense of knowing thyself, right, as part of practical metaphysics by understanding ourselves and our senses and how we relate to them. We use the capital R reality to understand that there is nothing separate, right? So God and I are one. We use the one finger. Because if we use two fingers, it indicates a separation in between the fingers. So God and I are one. You and I are one. Everything that happens out here, right, is in our head first, and then we see it, right? So we're going to see what it is we're projecting. But what we know is we cannot change anything outside of ourselves until we change what's inside of ourselves. This is where the head and the heart take the focus of our attention so that we can change how it is we see things out into the world. Butterworth says that we get to see things rightly, not as we are, right? So head and heart connected allows for the manifestation then of outpicturing what we want to happen, and we get to see rightly. Charles Fillmore, our Unity co-founder, his favorite scripture was from Colossians chapter 1, verse 27, and it says, Christ in you, your hope of glory. Christ in you, your hope of glory. And the you is you and me and you and me and you and you and you and you and you and everybody. Christ is the God possibility within us, within you and me and everybody, everywhere present. Because we remember Christ means the anointed one. Christ was Jesus's job description, not his last name. And so you and I get to call forth this Christ consciousness, and live from this space within us. It's at the very depth of you and me. I love this stuff when we get to realize, oh, I get to just call it forth. It's not something I have to get outside of me. It's something that we get by practicing it. Not just believing in Jesus as one of our many way showers. We get to be the Christ consciousness from the beginning of every single moment of every single day. Christ in you, the hope of glory. What do you think? It's good stuff. And it keeps us then on the trajectory that we want to be every day. We come from this truth within us. In the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, it says, God created us in God's image and after God's likeness. Butterworth says this might be the most majestic statement in the Bible. It's certainly the most defining for me. God created me in God's image and after God's likeness. The same with you. So it's a big deal to be us in this world. We are the very face of God for some. They never meet anybody like us. I know you've heard this. I've never met anybody like you. You're right. You're right. So the image is ours as the privilege of then seeing it in another, right? This is the likeness. This is something that we have great responsibility over, to be this for others out into the world. The I am age is the divine potential. I am age is image. The divine depth within you and me, always present, always and in always. So breathe with me. Are you willing to own it? I hope so. So this is what we know the difference between Jesus of Nazareth and you and me. Are you ready for it? Jesus was aware of his potential. I know I'm not always aware of my potential. Are you? So we get to be. That's part of this week's lesson. Know thyself. Embrace your divinity. Be aware and live from the Christ potential within you. The divinity as us expressing. So say this with me. I am divine. Say it with me. I am divine. Scriptures tell us, and the Bible stories illustrate that Jesus discovered his own divine image and then lived completely from this place as he went about in his ministry work for those 3 years. In the book of John, chapter 14, verse 22, it says, nothing shall be impossible unto you. So in my 35 years as a truth student, what I've learned is there's no way that I can ever become more spiritual, because I am already spiritual. It is my divine nature. It's your divine nature. All that we have to do is to claim it. Yes, we can read and we can study and we can go to classes and learn different techniques and all of that. And those all help us to claim the truth of who we are. We call it forth from within us. I am spiritual. You are spiritual. Say that to yourself. I am spiritual. And guess what? We never get to be anything less than that. The journey each day, as the feet hit the floor, is to wake up to our spirituality, to embrace our divinity, and to acknowledge our wholeness. The divine potential as you and me is happening now. You and I can only understand ourselves and know ourselves when we see the divinity in us and as us, the Christ consciousness through us. Yeah, it's a big deal. You and me, using this Christ consciousness to heal ourselves, to overcome, to demonstrate and make manifest, because it's part of how we live our life every day. There's no limit. That's the exciting part. You and I can never be separated from any of this potentiality. Eric Butterworth writes another great statement. You can only become what you already are. So what we're doing is kind of like David did with Michelangelo, is just you know, what Michelangelo did with David, get rid of all that isn't you and allow yourself to make manifest out as you. We get to acknowledge and awaken and recognize what we've always known, because we are an individualized expression of the infinite mind, the God mind, the great creator. That's what we call God, right? So that's our job every day, y'all, to get up, to remember throughout the day, to awaken to the truth of ourselves, to get to know thyself over and over and over. Learning through classes online is realizing our potential, you and me, realizing the truth of what we've been all along, even before we knew it, right? It's the whole of you and me right now that we're expressing on this path together, this journey that we're sharing. The Apostle Paul, it's said that he said, stir up the gift of God within you. Stir up the gift of God within you. Okay, so that means we get to awaken to the gifts we have. We allow ourselves to be spirit-led. We stay prayed up, right? Because if not, then what happens is we become ego-driven, or we start believing what other people might be making up in their own lives. So if we stay prayed up, then we can be centered yet again in the truth of who we've come here to be. Butterworth says that God can do no more for you than God can do through you. God can do no more for you than through what God does through your consciousness, through your understanding, and through the little willingness that each of us has. Our unity teachings teach us we are not what we think we are. Rather, what we think we are. And that's why I invite you to think and then question what you're thinking, and then look again at it and re-question it again. Life is forever saying to you and me, who do you think you are? And we get to say, I am. I am the God self-expressing as Therese. I can do what I need to do to be what I need to be. That allows me to be who and what I've come here to be. Same with you. The statement, as we say that, I am the God self-expressing as me, allows my little s self to get out of the way, the ego self, to then allow the potential to stay present. And we know this. The ego we need because it's part of our humanity. And what we're always trying to do then is to reconcile our humanity and our divinity so we can be 100% of both all the time. However, we want spirit and our divinity to be driving the bus, so to speak. Eric Butterworth has some homework for us this week. So, you ask yourself, who do you think you are? So stand then in front of a mirror and say it. Who do you think you are? Looking at yourself in the mirror, taking it all in, making room for a pause, and then say, I am an individualized expression of the divine potential that is limitless. Christ in me, the hope of glory. Christ in me, the hope of glory. So you put this in the first person for you. I am an individualized expression of the divine potential that is limitless. God in me. Christ in me, the hope of glory. God in me, the hope of glory. Same thing, right? So we get to know ourselves. We get to honor our divinity, acknowledge our wholeness. So let's take a moment and close our outer eyes and move into a time together of quiet and meditation. Quiet and meditation. And say to yourself quietly, I am. We breathe in and we exhale. I am. This acknowledges the very presence of God's image and likeness expressing as you. Beyond the appearance, beyond the humanness, beyond any limitations. We breathe. You, a unique, unrepeatable expression of God. This is an allness, expressing as the eachness of you, the wholeness of you. This is the answer, I am. And we breathe for a moment together in the silence. And as we bring our attention back to this time and this place, may you go forth conscious of the depth of you, conscious of the image and likeness of God that you represent, the wholeness and the divinity of you, the allness in the eachness. We breathe together, we say thank you. Thank you for these teachings that keep reminding us of the brilliance that we are. And so it is, we say thank you and amen. As you're so moved, we gratefully receive. On our website at www.unityofhiltonhead.org, there's a practice generosity button. Thank you for your checks and that come in the mail to P.O. Box 1392, Bluffton, South Carolina, 29910. For all that you are, to all that we are as Unity Spiritual Center, Hilton Head Island, we are grateful. So let's say our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds me. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds me. I am the love of God. The power of God protects me. I am the power of God, and the presence of God watches over me. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is. And because God is, all is well. Many blessings. Reverend Therese signing off. Unity Spiritual Center, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Come see us on a Sunday at 10 a.m. Many blessings.